There's a ridiculous amount of clear water. And a lot of crops.
It's got everything you need, as long as you're not afraid of heights.
Where does the water come from?
He pumps it up from deep in the earth, calls it aquacola, and claims it all for himself.
And because he owns it, he owns all of us.
I don't like him already.
Welcome to the Mad Max Minute. It'll take us 2 weeks to skirt the wall of mountains, which leaves plenty of time to talk about Mad Max Fury Road, 1 minute at a time. I'm Rick.
And I'm Julia.
And today we're talking about minute 88, which begins with Toast talking about the water at the Citadel, and it ends with Capable reminding everyone that they have a war boy with them. Here to suggest that we go under the mountain instead of over it, despite what the dwarves awoke in the darkness of Khazad-dûm, it's Norman Mitchell and Cassandra Fredrickson from the Lord of the Rings Minute.
Hi.
Hi.
It's awfully irresponsible to be suggesting things like that when we all know that the dwarves dug too deep.
Gandalf's got his own priorities, man.
Who's Gandalf in this scenario?
Max?
Is it Furiosa? Because she has one way she wants to go.
I feel like Furiosa is the Gandalf because she's leading everybody out into the salt. And then Max is like Gimli, being like, or we could do this.
Yeah, and she's the one that instigated the whole thing.
Yeah.
Is there currently a company of 9 in the scene?
I think there's more.
There's 14, I believe.
Oh, so it's more like The Hobbit.
Yeah.
Except with less singing.
Well, there is some singing in a couple of minutes.
That's
true. On Friday.
Okay. Fury Road versus the Hobbit trilogy. What's the better movie?
Fury Road.
Yes.
Duh.
Yes. That is the correct answer. You know your audience.
With 100% more women.
I say you know your audience. I'm talking about general movie-going audiences.
Right?
It's like literally 1,400% more women.
Thranduil doesn't get honorary woman status.
He is a sassy, sassy bitch. I love him so much.
No, he'd fit right in among the wives in the white satin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's like the perfect combination of the wives' femininity and Immortan Joe's style sensibilities with like the flowing white hair.
Yeah.
And the emblazoned garbs.
The tendency to ride out into battle on a mount that is entirely too large and impractical.
Doesn't he ride like a giant deer or an elk or something? It's like an elk,
I think, yeah.
Yeah, it's like an elk with entirely too many antlers, and he beheads like 10 orcs at the same time. Catches them all up and...
It's like a horse, but like a giga horse.
Like a giga horse.
I mean, if we really want to draw a 1-to-1 with it, but that's an entirely different subject for something that we should probably be holding on to Friday, because today we're still with the Vuvalini, we're still with the wives, and as we start minute 88, Toast is talking about water. She says that there is a ridiculous amount of clear water at the Citadel and lots of crops. And the Dag pipes up and says, it's got everything you need, as long as you're not afraid of heights, and suddenly this really feels like a pitch for a timeshare.
It really does. I think Toast and the Dag, which we've already decided, I think last week, that they would make a great morning radio team.
Oh my gosh, anyone and the Dag.
And the Dag, this is true.
The Dag.
Would make a great team to sell timeshares. Because, you know what? Toast has this cockiness about her, especially in this minute. She's got it most of the time, but it really shines in this minute. That she knows what she's talking about. She's not afraid to speak up. She's not afraid to take control of the conversation. She's not afraid to be sassy to people who might otherwise intimidate someone of her age. Mm-hmm. So I am equally annoyed and impressed by her.
Are all of the wives pregnant, or was it just Splendid and Dag?
It's just Angharad and Dag.
That we know of.
That we know of. This is true.
Yeah, it's never brought up. Like, we know from...
Capable and Toast theoretically could be pregnant.
Yeah. Like, we know from outside lore discussion on the movie that Cheeto hasn't yet been touched by Joe, I think is the nice way to put it. So, yeah, all of the others could be carrying, in a sense of the word, but it's never completely spelled out for us.
How old are they supposed to be? Is there like a set age for all of them, or?
Not that I know of. Rick, you've read the extended materials. Any ideas about age?
It doesn't specifically say, so I've just been going by the ages of the actresses, which range from, I want to say, 1985 to... Wasn't the actress that plays Cheeto like a lot younger than that? I can't remember off the top of my head.
Well,
she looks
85
younger.
is old to be playing these particular characters.
Well...
Because 85 is like 34 years old.
In 2019, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. So minus 4 years. You can't tell me that they can't find attractive actresses who are like 19 to 22.
Well, that's probably why they're doing like a Saved by the Bell situation. Or I guess a more current reference would be like a Riverdale situation where you're taking all of these actors in their mid to late 20s and they're playing a lot younger.
I have a hard time believing that they would do that to women because you know that in Hollywood, the younger the woman, the better.
Well, I mean, that happens a lot with like high school shows in general. Like they will cast.
These are not high schoolers. These are
right.
Cheeto was the only one who could be considered like high school age. The character.
Are they supposed to be like early to mid 20s?
Yeah, I would imagine the way the movie is framed and the way that I kind of think about it is that Splendid is the oldest, clearly. At least that's how I feel about it. And I don't imagine she's any older than like 25.
Yeah. When it comes to actual ages, Rosie Huntington-Whiteley, who played the Splendid Angharad, is the oldest, being born in April 87, and Cheeto is the youngest, being born in January 96.
Oh my God, she's a baby.
So this 96 to... She was 18. Or no, she was... How old was she?
Well, this came out in what, 2015?
Yeah.
Yeah, so she was 18 when they filmed the movie?
Yeah, that sounds right.
19.
Hold on, I'm trying to...
Trying to math.
87... Hold on. I'm gonna calculator this because I'm completely like brain dead at this point.
Yeah, 96 to 2006 would be 10.
Rosie Huntington-Whiteley would have been 27.
Yeah. So we're looking at 18 to 27 is the range of Joe's wives based on the ages of the real actresses.
Right. And you might imagine that the characters are supposed to be a little bit younger than the women playing them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ew, that makes her like 15. Ew. Oh no.
Which is why she hasn't been touched.
Yeah.
Oh God.
She's too young.
There's a possibility that amidst all of Joe's atrocities and how ruthless he is when it comes to murder and exploitation, that he will take a wife when she's younger, but he won't actually attempt to breed with her until she reaches 18.
He gets no brownie points.
Yeah.
None.
That might be a silver lining, but it's not a silver lining that redeems the rest of the storm cloud.
Right.
And honestly, when you think of like the in-world representation of Immortan Joe, he doesn't strike me as the kind of guy that would respect an age restriction.
Yeah.
No, 18 doesn't mean anything to them anymore.
Yeah.
He's super, like, his whole setup is like super hierarchical and super strict on the rules. Maybe he's just a guy that isn't willing to break the laws that he followed tightly before.
True.
I would very much like to believe that.
Like, there are certain things that he just won't do because they were always laws across his life.
He was a military man.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly.
Very big on rules and structure. I could see him carrying over the idea of age appropriateness, but not consent appropriateness, because that's not emphasized in the military.
There are some things that military life maybe made more sacrosanct in his brain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So getting back to the subject of water, the Keeper of the Seeds, played by Melissa Jaffer, as we mentioned a couple minutes back, she asks where the water comes from, and Toast continues talking about how he pumps it up deep in the earth. It calls it Aquacola and claims it all for himself. And because he has all of the water, he owns all of them. Mm-hmm. And it's very much a Jafar from Aladdin situation. The golden rule is he who has the gold makes the rules.
Mm-hmm. And there's definitely a precedent for this sort of behavior. It's how humans have behaved for as long as we've been human, I think. Especially, well, it might be more fair to say as long as we've been capitalists.
Yeah, I was going to be like,
Resource control has always been like a big problem in history before like modern capitalism too.
I agree. I think there are older forms of capitalism that still applies to.
People controlling oases and desert cultures.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I do appreciate that he takes this resource that in our world, like water belongs to everybody sort of thing. Although you still have to pay for water.
Water
Not
belongs to Nestle.
Yeah, right. But because he brands it, he calls it Aquacola. It makes it a product and it's easier to own it.
Now that strikes me as a tie over from the previous civilization before the fall. He knows that just anybody can go out and take water, but if he slaps a brand on it, that means that it is his exclusively. Like, you can't go... You guys are up in Maine, so you're familiar with Poland Springs. You can't just go to where they bottle Poland Springs and stick a cup in the water and just drink it, because then you're taking their Poland Springs water and they've paid for rights to it and they've commoditized it. That's not a word. Away from everybody else in the general public. Like, there are rules against capturing rainwater.
Which is so dumb.
Yeah. Like, I can understand you don't want everybody like setting up these huge water catching situations so they can sell it elsewhere because you want water to get into the ground and things like that. But if you just want to set up a bucket to catch water so you can take that water and use it in your gardens, like then it's getting into the ground anyway. You need to stop being such sticklers about it. But that's a subject that I haven't studied up on. I just know it's funny and ridiculous.
Yeah. It is ridiculous. If every house everywhere had like 55-gallon barrels out to collect rainwater, it wouldn't matter for the ground, for the water table. Especially not in an area that's like not experiencing a drought.
My mom lives in San Diego, and I think she had to either buy or rent one from the city, like that was specially like designed to collect rainwater so she could use it on her lawn or something. It's really weird.
Just leave a bucket in the backyard.
Well, standing water also invites mosquitoes.
Yeah.
That's a problem, but like in general, just it's falling from the sky.
Yeah.
Just let people collect it.
If there's one huge advantage to living in an apocalypse, there's a chance if there's no water, there's also no mosquitoes.
If there's no water, we're going to die.
But I will counter that statement by saying if we were in a post-apocalypse, the mosquitoes could also be mutated into gigantic blood bug type situations.
Oh, like that made-for-TV monster movie?
Yeah.
Literally called Mosquitoes.
Oh my God.
Where they're like 3 foot tall.
Jeez, that is nightmare scenario number one.
It was on USA all the time when I was a kid.
I don't want Hobbit-sized mosquitoes. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and like ticks the size of people's heads. That was like another one.
Nope. Don't like that.
Yeah, that is not okay.
I mean, it would make them easier to see, and you could hopefully swat them earlier. Granted, you'd probably have to use like a baseball bat instead of a fly swatter, but you know, that's life in the wasteland. Now, following the DAG describing how because Joe owns all the water, he owns all of them, the Keeper of the Seeds pipes up and she says, I don't like him already. And to that, I just want to say that Melissa Jaffer is a treasure.
I concur. I appreciate that she, the Keeper of the Seeds, takes basic knowledge that she learned in like 20 seconds and pretty much knows everything she needs to know about Joe.
She is. She's wonderful. I love that she immediately just dismisses Joe. I don't like him already. I like the way she says that line. It's just so, like a sheer statement of fact. Like, this is how everyone should feel. Like, it's not, there's no, it's fully confident. It's just whatever.
I like how subtly humorous it is because it feels very human. Like, I don't know. It's just girls talking about this terrible dude. And it's just like, oh, he's a garbage man. Like, he's a garbage can. I hate him.
I'm sure she can't wait to snap him.
Mm-hmm. What'd she say? Right in the medulla?
Yeah. Killed everyone I ever met out here.
Snap.
Headshots. I guess this is kind of from the previous minute, because we don't see the map in this minute that he drew.
Right.
But what I think is really interesting is how the map is also connected to Max as a willing use of his blood in the movie, compared to when people are trying to use him for his blood. Him using his blood to help others is like a metaphor for the way he goes about his life in general. And because he's the universal donor, he's always willing to give people more than he gets. And I think it ties into that whole thread of the movie.
I agree. There's definitely a theme of the movie of consent versus non-consent. And earlier, when he was a blood bag, he was in a similar situation as the wives. Something was being taken from him without consent. And it's something that, under the right circumstances, he would have freely given. And under the right circumstances, the wives would have freely given. But it was not the right circumstances. And now he has the opportunity to do something with his blood of his own choosing to help other people.
Right. And I think that even ties to the moment where he comes back after killing the bullet farmer, when Furiosa says that's not his blood. He didn't even give his blood to the bullet farmer when he killed him. He gave no blood in that situation.
Haha, that's good.
I like that. Yeah.
So I think that ties across like other moments in the movie too. I think it's really interesting the way they use the universal donor thing across the film.
Yeah, they really did. It's pretty cool. More than just a callback at the end.
Yeah.
The Valkyrie, hearing this idea of going back to the Citadel, calls attention to the fact that it would take them 2 weeks to skirt the wall of mountains. And what I did when I heard this is the first thing I thought was, well, yeah, it'll take them 2 weeks to skirt the mountain, but going through the Gap of Rohan would take them too close to Isengard. And when I thought of that, I remembered that there was a map that was shown when Brendan McCarthy, George Miller, and Nico Lathuris went to the Sydney Opera House and were interviewed by the people that run that place. They showed a map up on the big screen that showed, okay, here's the Citadel. They go through Buzzard territory, through the canyon in the mountains, past the green place into the dunes. And I'm like, the placement of those mountains stands out to me as familiar. And so I found a map of Middle-earth, and I laid the map of the World of Fury Road on top of the map of Middle-earth. And wouldn't you know that the artist depiction very closely lines up with the map of Middle-earth, where the Citadel is pretty much around where the Shire is. The canyon and mountains is, I think, are those the Misty Mountains, the ones that go down the middle?
Yes.
So the Rock Riders Canyon would be pretty much Moria. The green place, or the bog, would be the southern tip of Mirkwood. And then the Vuvalini would therefore be just north of Mordor. And I don't think it was intentional, but it is a happy accident.
Yeah, because if you tilt the map just a little bit more, you can see that it's almost the exact same distance from the Citadel to where the Vuvalini were as from the Shire to Mount Doom, which is kind of crazy. And they did this in a single, in one 24-hour period.
Actually, I think we're on day 3.
Yeah.
Is it day 3?
Yeah.
It's Furiosa says it's a long night's drive, but that's after the canyon.
Yes.
Because it's about a day to the canyon.
Yeah, our first night is when we go through the green place. Our second night is hanging out with the Vuvalini.
Yeah. Then they turn right back around.
Yeah, so when Max says on Wednesday, listen, it'll be a hard day, they're saying, okay, it's still morning. They haven't quite gone through the bulk of the day just yet. So I posted the map that I made onto one of the Facebook pages that I'm a part of, the Mad Max, the Halls of Justice group on Facebook, which is moderated by former guest of the show, Shem Herman. And he posted a counter map as to what he believes is the layout for Fury Road, because it's not very well laid out. So what he thinks is that the mountain range that they pass through is the Great Dividing Range in the northeastern part of Australia, and they are on the northeastern coast of Australia when they're about to go into the 160 days of salt. And that they're not so much starting from the center of the continent, like Alice Springs or anything like that.
Quick question.
That they're closer to the edge.
This map that you overlaid over Middle-earth, this came from George Miller and people associated with George Miller, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is official. You don't get to mess with this.
I guess.
I think because you're saying like it's not laid out well as far as the geography of Australia is concerned.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. It's vague as to where exactly this is.
Like the mountain range that goes through Queensland. I actually have Google Maps open so I can actually use real names now. So the idea would be that the Citadel would be somewhere between Winton and Hugenden, and then you'd go through the mountains. The green place would be somewhere between Townsville and Moranbah, and then the Vuvalini would be hanging out somewhere around, I don't know, like Bowen or Arley Beach before going off into the Great Salt, which I believe is the Coral Sea that is now completely dried up. So I guess if they went for 160 days across that salt, they would eventually reach the Solomon Islands.
Maybe Max just knows that if they try to go 160 days that way, they're just going to find salt water.
Yeah.
Maybe he just kind of figured out where they were based on looking at other stuff, looking at the stars or something. He's been around traveling the wasteland for a long time.
Yeah. Plus, as we saw, he's been making these little maps. So he might have the most comprehensive map of the continent as it currently exists. It could be that. We don't know for sure. I'm not saying that Max has become an amateur cartographer in his spare time, but in the wasteland, you could argue that you do have a lot of spare time.
Right. And when you're not eating two-headed lizards alive.
Exactly.
I think he has exactly done that, become an amateur cartographer in his spare time. He made a map that makes him an amateur cartographer.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I mean, I guess they paid him with a motorcycle full of food and water. That makes him a professional.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
They're donating to his Patreon. I think you have to become an amateur of like, I don't know, kind of like a jack of all trades kind of thing in a survival scenario. You either figure out how to do it or you go without.
Yeah. With the Valkyrie saying it'll take a long time to skirt the mountains, Max is like, no, I say we turn around and go back the way we came through the canyon. And Toast is like, well, we got attacked by his full war party, so we know it's open. You know, he brought his whole war party through. And so Max is like, yeah, so while they're on this side of the mountains, we go back through the canyon, block it off, decouple the tanker at the pass, close it off behind us. And then the Keeper of the Seeds, with another great commentary moment, says, kaboom. And if I didn't make myself clearer earlier, Melissa Jaffer is a freaking treasure. She is great in this minute.
Also notice that the DAG does the hand motion, the kaboom hand motion, pretty much at the same time that the Keeper of the Seeds says kaboom.
There's a lot of focus on hands from this point of the movie forward with the Vuvalini. Like, I noticed stuff watching it before recording this that I hadn't noticed before with people's hands. Because I'm like, I watch movies differently since starting to do movies by minute podcasts. Imagine
Funny how that happens.
So I never noticed how much people's hands move in this part of the movie. So I think it's interesting, like, that the DAG is just mimicking the motion that Max makes. So we decouple the tanker. It's just...
And I love the point and head nod that Max gives to the Keeper of the Seeds.
It might be the closest we've come this movie to actually seeing delight on Max's face. It actually might be the most delighted we've ever seen him before, ever.
Because people are picking up what he's putting down.
Yeah.
He's looking at the Keeper of the Seeds. He's like, I like her.
Yeah.
I like this one.
I like this one. This is the most dialogue he has in the movie, right?
Is this scene? Yeah, it's like the most.
Yeah, it's a
dialogue
very talkative few minutes.
Yeah. Well, he's got to convince these people.
Because he has like less than 5 minutes of total dialogue in the whole movie.
I think.
I feel like it.
Yeah, something like that.
I'm going to have to go back at some point. Maybe before we discuss Max as a character, I'll go back and I'll do a Control F find on all my notes, and I can pull out every single line of dialogue, and I'll see, okay, how many different words does Max use? How many different times does he talk over 2 hours?
Right.
Because it does feel very low.
He says barely anything across this whole movie. He does a lot of like waving a gun to communicate.
And grunting.
And snapping.
Pointing at things. The twitchy cinematography.
Julia hated the snapping part. So we've established now the plan is rush through the war parties, get to the canyon first, block it off, close it down, And so Furiosa is like, okay, that's part one. Part two is actually taking the Citadel. And so she's like, assuming we're still alive, how are we going to do that? And Toast comes up with this idea, well, all that's left are the war pups and the war boys that are too sick to fight. And obviously, Max and Furiosa can go hand to hand against an army of toddlers.
That's disturbing. That's way too Anakin.
Like, even Cheeto could take on a war pup. Like, if it came to blows.
How many tumor-ridden toddlers can you fight?
No, that's so sad.
That's even worse. It's like raiding the cancer ward at a pediatric hospital. It's even worse.
Except they're the only ones with water, so you have no choice.
Oh my God.
It'd be like a Make-A-Wish sponsored battle royale tournament.
Oh no.
Well, that's how you make it even worse.
You make a whole movie. You have Charlton Heston. You make like an action movie starring Charlton Heston. You call it Make a Death Wish.
Sigh.
Yeah. Now, as great as the idea of fighting children sounds to me, Capable pipes up at the very tail end of this minute. In like the last 2 seconds, he says, "Oh, we'll be with Nux," reminding everybody that, oh yeah, they do have an inside agent of the enemy with them right now. He's not currently working for them, but he is within the party.
This line, out of context, feels naive. It feels like, oh, Nux is the answer to everything that's wrong.
I think Capable is a little naive.
Despite her name.
Yeah.
Well, let's not get too much into Capable bringing up Nux, because that is how we start off Wednesday's minute.
That's why I said out of context.
So we'll put a pin in this and we'll bring it back up first thing next time. But before we wrap for the day, Norman and Cassandra, could you share with our listeners where they can hear more of your stuff?
Well, you can find us at duelinggenre.com or at lordoftheringsminute.com. We, like Rick mentioned at the beginning of the minute, co-host Lord of the Rings Minute, which is like this, but with the Lord of the Rings extended trilogy.
Twice as long.
Yes.
Yep.
Less women.
3, in fact, in 12 hours of film.
Right. So we will be on Return of the King by the time this is released into the wild.
Yeah, we should be a little ways in by the time any of your listeners hear this.
Yeah, a couple of weeks, I think.
And then sometime in 2021, you'll be wrapping.
Yeah.
Because it'll take you that long.
It's 4 hours and 1 minute.
How is that even?
Not including credits.
That just blows my mind.
Do you not remember how long Return of the King is?
No, I don't watch Lord of the Rings.
Well, doesn't the narrative technically end about 2.5 hours in, and then the last 90 minutes is just wrap up?
Oh, endings.
Yeah.
It's more like the last 30 minutes is wrap up.
Oh, okay.
No, I think the last 45 minutes. I don't have my spreadsheet in front of me, so I can't verify this, but yeah, there's a lot of minutes.
There's a fade to white, a fade to black, a fade to black, a fade to black. Credits.
A map transition.
Yep. 1 year to the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of wrap up, but
there's a lot to look forward to.
Yes, I'm excited.
Is what you mean, yeah.
The third one's my favorite. So
me being unable to talk about the moment in the movie that always makes me cry when we finally get there.
Mm-hmm. Should I have a guest host on?
Probably.
All I know is that while I'm sure it's ridiculously far away, I cannot wait to talk about the Mouth of Sauron.
Oh my God. I'm so excited. Like watching it again for the first time, I was like, oh man, I'm so excited.
So great.
It is. It's the Mouth of Sauron is wonderful.
Oh.
But there will be plenty of time to talk about that. Oh, way the heck down the road.
In over a year's time.
Yeah. As for us, we will be coming back on Wednesday when Nux and the Vuvalini get on board with the plan. Max will appeal to Furiosa's hope for redemption, and the group will decide to make a run of it.
The Mad Max Minute podcast is a fan project by Rick and Julia Ingham.
The Mad Max franchise was created by George Miller and Byron Kennedy, is presented by Kennedy Miller Mitchell Productions, and distributed by Warner Brothers.
Mad Max Minute is produced and edited by Rick Ingham. Our opening music is Verdi's Dies Irae by Daniel Bautista of danielbautista.com.
Our home on the internet is madmaxminute.com. You can follow us on Twitter at madmaxminute, like us on Facebook by searching for Mad Max Minute, and join our Facebook listener group, Mad Max Minute Beyond Microphone.
If you'd like to support the podcast, visit madmaxminute.com, where you can see what's in our TeePublic store, join our Patreon, or even donate to the show to help us keep the tanks full.
Thank you for joining us for Minute 88 of Fury Road. We'll see you next time.